Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody. I will do my usual right to know checklist here. So, as chair of the Hopkinton Select Board, due to COVID-19 coronavirus crisis in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Note there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm we're doing the following. A, providing public access to the meeting by phone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're using Zoom for this meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through Zoom, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing 1-646-558-8656 or by clicking a Zoom link. B, we are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the town's website and the town's Facebook page. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has problems, they can call 603-746-8242 or email townadmin@hopkinton-newhampshire.gov. D, adjourning the meeting if the public's unable to access the meeting. In the event the public can't access the meeting, we will adjourn and have the meeting rescheduled. And Zoom, helpful things to know, this meeting's being recorded and will be available to watch at a later time. The link will be on the town website. The board is unmuted, but all others are muted. If you have a question, you can use the chat feature or comment during public forum. The lines will be unmuted. And finally, all votes taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So let's start by taking a roll call attendance, and please state if there's anyone else in the room with you, which is required under the right to know law. So this is Sabrina Dunlap. I am alone in my office. Anna, you're next on my screen.
Anna Wells, I'm alone.
And Ken.
Ken Traum, I'm alone.
Jeff.
Jeff Donahoe, I'm alone. I'm going to jump off and get back in because something's wrong with my video.
And Stephen.
Stephen Whitley, alone.
Excellent. All right. So kicking off with points of pride.
Sure. I have a couple to mention. I think it was just over 200 bags, blue bags, were given out last Wednesday for people who collected trash throughout town. The town looks much better. There were lots of volunteers. And there are people who this week have been asking for blue bags and intend to go out and do it. All the people that are out walking are going to pick things up. We've noted almost every week, but I'm going to note it again because Marilyn passed this on, just all the work Dimitri is doing, helping the food pantry get supplies, helping feeding the people who can't get out each week, and just all that he's doing. And she also asked, noted, which I wasn't aware, Kathy Butcher, who is the town crier for the Monitor, is also a nurse, but has been volunteering since this all started at the food pantry each Wednesday. So not only is she doing her role as a nurse, but she's helping volunteer there. So those are a few for this week.
Excellent.
I'll just note it. I guess it's a point of pride that just looking out my front windows or the scattered times when I leave the house, it seems like people in town are abiding by staying in whenever possible, and when they do go out, they're observing the separations, and I just think that's something great.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everyone who helped put together the cleanup day. I know Becky Whitley was one of the people, and Bonnie, and the whole waste management, I'm getting that wrong, waste reduction, I think that's right, committee.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing because I have to say Gould Hill, there's usually like a gross number of cans, and we went up and somebody had clearly already done part of the street, and it was amazing how much better it looked. And so we went and found another dirty spot to do, but it was nice seeing everybody's pictures from the day, and it's a great way to give back even while social distancing. Anything else for Points of Pride? All right. Okay, moving on to administrative. Approval of consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of April 27, 2020.
Second?
All right. Roll call vote. Sabrina Dunlap, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right, okay. A request has been made for me to join everyone for dinner, so I had to say I'll be there in a few minutes. A request by my 5-year-old. Okay, so the consent agenda passed.
And do you want to authorize someone to sign it?
Yes, I always forget that. Jeff, are you willing to go?
No problem.
Thank you for doing that. So I guess I'll move that Jeff be allowed to sign on everyone's behalf.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Sabrina, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes, and thank you, Jeff.
Jeff?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Get me
Yeah.
out of the house.
All right, I lost my agenda here. I think the minutes must be next, right?
I'll move we approve the public meeting minutes of April 20, 2020.
Second?
Any edits or discussion? All right. So Sabrina, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes of April 20th, 2020?
So moved.
Second?
Any edits, discussion? All right. Sabrina, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Moving on to COVID-19 updates.
Sure, I'll just give an update from our perspective. Largely, this was a maintain week. We did hear that the police have had some additional domestic calls. I think tensions are getting higher the longer people are inside and not moving around. On Friday, I attended via Zoom or WebEx the FEMA public assistance training meeting, and we've submitted just what it is an intent to apply for grant money for this. So that's been done. Attached in your packet was the governor's update on the DMV, things that have been extended, like the temporary plates and things like that. And I think probably the things that are out there are use of the tennis courts for a board decision, discussion of town meeting, and talk about swearing in the people who were elected, whether that gets done now or after a meeting, and how to best do that. Those are the things I have.
All right. Thanks, Neil. So I guess unless anyone has anything else pressing, you want to talk about the tennis courts issue. It sounds like we had a little bit of insight from Concord. Ken?
Yeah, I checked and with a friend who's in the Concord city government, and he indicated that their tennis courts are open. And one day in the past week, I did go past the Memorial Field courts in Concord, and there were a couple of players. It was not crowded, but that was the only feedback that I had. I did not ask him if they had had any kind of incidences of crowding at the courts or not.
And Paula did not feel strongly one way or another, although when I talked to her, the Recreation Association had just sent a thing saying it could be transferred through the balls and maybe the court should be closed. But I think it's all over the place. So
How can kids or people go and just play ball, play catch in the fields now, or they're restricted so they shouldn't be used at all?
no, the fields are wide open. People can use them. We haven't had any complaints either about people being too close. I think the gatherings have been small and people are keeping their distance.
I mean, I have a bit of not a very strong, but an opinion that I think that we should open them and sign them well, to remind folks about social distancing, but also to caution them that if they're sharing balls, they're putting themselves at risk. But I think, I actually think that it would be fine to open them. It's my personal opinion.
I'm with Anna. I think if there's adequate signage reminding people to be responsible and adhere to social distancing, I'm fine with them being opened up.
We run the risk of people complaining, why isn't the skate park open if we can stay 6 feet apart? Why isn't the
Yeah.
playground open?
Right.
I mean, I totally agree that the playground should be closed because of the hard surfaces, because of the life of the virus. I just wonder if we're asking for trouble opening one facility but not other facilities.
I had the same concern, Jeff. Like, I mean, the skate park, it sounded like there were definitely reports of people being close together and too many numbers wise gathering. And like, in theory, in tennis, even if you're playing doubles, you wouldn't have more than 4 people. But I agree. I'm afraid, like, I agree with the rationale in terms of opening them because it seems like low risk, but I fear the like cascade of, well, then why aren't all these other things open? And I don't think we want to go down that path. And I know of other town courts that are sort of part of gathering spaces the way ours are in town that are locked up and shut. So we wouldn't be like, an outlier in that realm. I'm kind of surprised Concords are open actually, but I mean, it stinks because I would love to open up a way for people. And like, I know of a few people where it's family members who want to play together who are just under one roof. So like, in that regard, it feels like a shame to keep them closed. But I also just don't think we want to go down the road of opening up the skate park or the playground at this point.
I can see that point.
I'll just add my 2 cents that I err on the side of caution and also keep them closed.
And I think we can revisit it in 2 weeks.
Sure.
The numbers for the state continue to increase. I think there was 60 new cases today. It's about 3.5% increase over the prior day. I guess I'm with Ken and Aaron in the side of caution, and maybe let's wait 2 weeks and revisit it.
Yeah, we know the governor is going to be coming out with something new, I think, within the next few days. So, yeah, it makes sense to revisit this and keep them closed for now and revisit in 2 weeks.
I'm
That's fine
totally.
with me.
I didn't think about the skate park being the logical follow-on from the tennis courts. So I think that's totally fine to keep. They should be under the same rules. So I think that's fine to keep them closed.
Neil, I assume we don't need a vote because they're already closed, correct?
Right, they're already closed, so that's fine. And we'll put it back on in 2 weeks.
Great.
Thanks.
I mean, sooner if the governor says something sooner, as Ken indicated, but if not, we'll wait 2 weeks.
Wait,
No, but I think you're right, Jeff, that given that we're still seeing this many cases each day, we've not come down. We may have plateaued, but we're not coming down yet. So I think that's wise.
And, you know, I mean, as most of you know, I'm the treasurer for the men's softball league. And, you know, I get 10 requests every week. When can we play? When can we play? I said, you know, we're not playing. That's just not going to happen right now.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see what the governor says. So,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys for that conversation. Ready to move on to town meeting
sure.
under COVID? Okay.
So I sent out what the school's doing. I listened to their meeting. I think Ken did too, because I heard him speak. They're planning at this point to do a drive-through similar to what Bo did. Clearly the town meeting call is the moderator, Bruce Ellsworth's call all the way around. It seems to me the school's moving forward in May because of contracts and all of that. It seems like the town could move to June and we can wait and see what happens. And then we would also have the experience of the school to find out if it works really well, then we can improve on it or use it exactly the way it is and make it work. But so I think that would be my recommendation at this point, that we really don't have the same urgent need that the school does to move forward at this point, and it could be moved to June. And then if it looks like things aren't going to change at that point, the drive-through could be looked at and with the school experience.
I agree with Neil that right now we should be considering a delay at least until June. I would also think that because it's Bruce's call, that we should invite him to one of these meetings in the next week or two to see where he's coming from. After listening to the school's tentative approach, I had a problem with how they were deciding on what budget or budget amendments would be included, and at the appropriate time. That's, I think, something that we have to discuss in detail. Their approach apparently differs significantly from what Bo did, in that with Bo, they apparently got input from their budget committee, and then the school board voted on reductions to a number, or amendments to a number of warrant articles, which is not at all the approach at this point that it looks like our school board is proceeding with. So I think it requires a significant discussion on our part on that part of it. I also had a question, as opposed to the drive-up voting as Bo did, or our school board is looking at. What's the possibility of doing it all by mail?
I think that would be a logistical problem.
If you do it by mail, you'd have to figure out how to allow people to debate and deliberate and make amendments and do those sorts of things. I don't know how you do that by mail.
Well, I was just thinking in terms of what, let's say, the last step in Bo was simply
Just the voting.
the voting, or for our school board, the voting. Could the voting, instead of drive-in, be all by mail? And it's just the thought. I don't know if it really makes sense or not, but it's certainly safer in my mind.
So how would you verify that it's a Hopkinton? How would you distribute ballots, and B, verify Hopkinton resident?
Sure. My preliminary thought is that once the the process is decided on and the select board determines what we would like to see as amended warrant articles or whatever, that packet with information would go out to all registered voters in town with a request that if you want an absentee ballot, you have to request it by X date. Then we send it out and then we get the absentee ballots back and they're counted. I don't know how much more expense it would require or how much more time would have to be built into the process, but it would it would minimize the amount of physical risk, let's say.
I would say it would add 2 to 3 weeks to the process at least, and would take quite a bit of time to process all those ballots. So one thing I did recommend to the school, the way Bo did it is they finalized their ballot, I think on Friday night, and voted on Saturday. I think a smart idea, if you finalize it, say you finalized it on Friday night, is not to vote the next Saturday, but the following Saturday, so that a sample ballot could be prepared with a voter's guide similar to what they do with SB2 that could be mailed to everybody. So everybody would have a sample ballot. And during that week, there could be a time where questions were taken to explain the process in the ballot, because this is something totally new. So I think the more people have an opportunity to learn about the process, the better it would go. And they could fill out their sample ballot and it wouldn't take them as long then to fill out their regular ballot because they would have already kind of made up their minds. So,
Hey, Neil, 2 questions. First, do you know how they decided on amendments? I mean, I can see, Ken's going to recommend a reduction in the school budget of $1 million, and I'm going to recommend $2 million, and Stephen's going to recommend an increase. They decide which of those is going to make the ballot.
in Bo, what they did, I believe, is took that to the school board, and the school board made the decisions. My sense is they had a much less controversial budget.
Yeah.
Here, what I heard them say is they're going to actually put amendments on that you vote on. So you would vote, the first amendment may be to, the amendment is to reduce the budget by 500,000. And then you would vote, do you support the budget if the amendment 1 passes? And you would vote yes or no. And then there would be another amendment to vote to reduce it 250,000. And then the same question, do you support it if this amendment passes? Right. And the highest one, which is first, would go because this is the way James Newsom, the moderator, explained it, because that would have been the one that passed at the meeting. And if it didn't pass, then maybe a smaller reduction. Mm-hmm. I did not hear anyone talk about raising it, though.
And the way apparently James would decide what the potential reductions are that would go onto the ballot would be, he would just look at the comments he received, and based on that say, okay, a $500,000 reduction, a $200,000 reduction, no reduction. And if even the school board wouldn't have any input into that. Whereas in both the budget committee provided input to the school board, and then the school board apparently decided how they were going to amend the warrant articles. And yes, they did not change the budget, but the 2 other warrant articles that were, I think, relating to remodeling or something of one of the buildings, I think one they knocked from $1 million down to $1, and another one they also reduced significantly.
It just seems like a system ripe for legal challenge. I mean, whether it's the school board and the budget committee or just the moderator making a decision, it seems like You know, if I wanted to reduce it by 1,000,001 and you wanted to reduce it by 1,000,000, those are supposed to both be heard. And so that's and my other question, Neil, back to where I started from was, I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss the email question you sent to us last week. But I'd be interested to hear that if it's appropriate.
Sure. So the Municipal Association had come up with that proposal, which they had submitted to the governor before, and they're going to do it again, which would be basically that the select board would be authorized to adopt a default budget, which would be the previous year's budget minus one-time expenses, plus we didn't have a bond passed last year, but if there was a bond payment from last year, that would be added to. So that is, they are taking that forward. The responses I saw, there were only 2 that people replied all, but it seemed everybody thought that was probably a decent sort of last option if nothing else worked. I know Jaffrey responded, and they're planning to do their town meeting at a sports complex, my guess, probably Franklin Pierce College. Moultonborough is planning their meeting at the end of May outside. So those were 2 responses that came into to the NHMA email so people are looking at other options.
You know, I wondered about the outside thing and a tent.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I don't know who said it earlier, but I think we should wait and see what Sununu does in the next week or 2, and then have Bruce come in and tell us kind of where he's at. Maybe in 2 weeks, because then maybe we'll know more about what the school district's going to do. I don't know.
Well, what was our tentative date? The 9th or the 16th?
The 16th.
That doesn't leave, yeah, I mean, 2 weeks from now is May 11th.
Yep.
No, but
True.
I thought in any case, we were talking about postponing to June. Or
Right, so,
2 issues. One is procedural and the other is when do we have it? And then you can sort of separate them. I mean, and if we push it back to June, then we'll know more.
yeah.
We'll know more not only about the situation with COVID, but we'll know more about how the school meeting went and whether that's a model worth following. But as of now, it's school meeting on the 9th and town on the 16th, which 1 week between doesn't give a lot of time for adjusting I personally think we should push the meeting back to June too.
Yeah,
I didn't realize the calendar was coming up on us so quick. I think we need to ask Bruce to come and talk to us next week. Then
Yeah.
Just let us know where he's at.
yeah, I was gonna say,
At a minimum, Neil can reach out to him and sort of get a sense of him. And then, Neil, I mean, I'd leave it up to you as to whether we want to ask Bruce to come in or if you just want to provide his feedback. It's okay with me.
And I think maybe him being part of this discussion
Yeah.
would be good as those decisions are made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So next week,
yeah,
Next week.
and it's 6:00.
Yeah. so, and Neil, just wrapping on that, like, the school wasn't asking for our thoughts on anything, right? Like, they're,
They were not.
okay.
No. And
Get the part
really,
unsolicited
really, the only information I had was from listening to their meetings. So,
Okay.
um,
All right. So,
Sorry, one more thing is that if we remove our meeting from the calendar on the 16th, they may perhaps push their meeting back a week.
mhm.
And
So,
they might do the voting part at least then.
on the 16th.
Yeah, it might give them more flexibility at least.
Yep.
So,
So I will try to have a conversation with Bruce sooner rather than later
mhm.
to be able to let the school district know where he's leaning with that.
Yeah.
Even
And
for
can
your,
we say as a group that, like, I mean, I feel pretty strongly that given the lack of urgency compared to like the school with contracts and things like that, I feel pretty strongly we should push this off. So I don't know if everyone feels comfortable with Neil relaying that to Bruce, just so he knows that like we do have an opinion on this.
It's fine with me.
Anna, Jeff, are you good with that? Stephen, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Neil, you'll go armed with that information to Bruce.
Yes, yep. I will
Thank you.
take him tomorrow.
Okay. So our 6 o'clock appointment with Chief Yale is non-public.
Right, so if you want to, if there's not too much else, I think he's willing to wait.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
If you
Okay.
did, there's not too much else beyond that.
I had wanted to ask the chief a couple of questions in public, not something related to the non-public issue.
So can we finish our other things quickly and then we can bring them on and you could ask them in public, Ken, and then Neil could turn off the recording for non-public?
Absolutely.
Neil, were you, I guess, are we just waiting for him to join and we can just,
So he's
He's here.
attendee.
oh, I didn't see him.
Yeah. Also, on the attendee list, there is a hand raised. I don't know if before
Oh,
we go to non-public, we should have some public comment, right? If we're gonna not come back out.
yeah.
we should-
Okay. I did not see the participants here. Okay. So why don't we try to wrap up old business and any other updates from Neil?
Really, the only update on the, like the old business, the review of applications, there were, I think 4, maybe 5 applicants. If there's no all of those positions are open, none of them overlapped. If there's no objection, I can contact them and appoint them unless you want to wait, to get some other applications, but those have come in so far.
I don't have an objection. It's more of a question. Is there any kind of an age requirement?
My understanding is certainly for elected positions, but the positions you appoint, you could do that. That would be your choice.
I think it would be great. I mean, I assume you're talking about the student.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I actually think it's a wonderful idea to have a younger person on any board committee, particularly this waste reduction committee. So
Well, I agree with you, Anna. It was just,
Okay.
I didn't know if,
if
technically.
there was some restriction.
Yes.
Okay.
And I asked Neil separately if there was any potential liability issues, and he says our insurance covers anyone appointed, so.
Excellent. Well, I'm fine with you moving forward with those if others are.
Yes.
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 Excellent.
Great.
And then before is everyone okay if we do public forum and then we'll go into non-public?
Yes.
But before we do that, is there any other, anyone have new business / any other updates, Neil?
No, I don't have any others.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to raise one issue. I had gotten a complaint about the outer lying areas of the transfer station. They seem to be because of people bringing a lot of stuff in. Maybe it's getting ahead of the crew, but there's a lot of papers and plastic that are flying out of the transfer station towards the river or whatever. And if we could maybe get some volunteers or the staff to do some more cleanup around the perimeter there. And maybe that would be something for our new appointees to the waste reduction group, or maybe it would be a part of what the Earth Day cleanup team had done.
I'll pass that. That's the first I've heard of that. So I'll pass that on to staff and see if they would, in some ways, they may not want people wandering around the transfer station picking up. So I'll check on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Definitely
therefore,
one way or the other.
yeah, okay, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Everyone okay if we go into public forum?
Just one other interesting facet, the New Hampshire Unemployment Office came out with a a town-by-town breakdown of the unemployment rates. And as of mid-April, Hopkinton is up to 10.5%. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind when we get towards the budget.
Which is pretty much in line with the towns around us too.
Yeah, Concord, I think, was 15,
And where were we before?
probably under 2.
Wow.
Thanks for that, Ken.
Thank you.
So public forum, I see one hand raised, 2 hands. So is everyone unmuted, Neil?
Nope, but I
Okay.
just unmuted Joyce, who had her hand raised.
Joyce, would you like to say something for public comment?
He's showing as muted on my screen.
Yeah, she has to, I think, now unmute herself.
Mm.
Yep. Joyce, you should be able to unmute yourself.
There.
Sorry about that. I love technology. No, I didn't have a question. I was trying to see the participants and I couldn't find it. So we're all set. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I saw Jean Lightfoot had her hand raised too. Jean, it looks like if you want to chat, you can. You just have to unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, it's Jean Lightfoot, 186 Deer Path, Kentucky. I'm just following up on what we talked about, I think it was last week, about the 3.2 million that the Secretary of State was hopefully going to get from the federal government. And he sent out a thing today saying that it is now in our bank account. So that was good news. It's money that is to be used for COVID issues related to the September primary and the November election. And the only thing I want to say is urge the select board and the town clerk, probably through the municipal association, to put some mild pressure perhaps onto the Secretary of State that money come down to the cities and towns, because that's really where the expenses are going to come. And I mean, I know this is going to be a work in process. Fortunately, we have enough time to work it out, but I just want to, call that to your attention so that maybe that will be in your radar. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jean.
Thanks, Gene.
So
We have one person on the phone. I'm going to unmute just.
Oh, Dennis here.
Yep.
I've actually no idea why Zoom wouldn't let me in. It told me that I was declined. I assumed that was just personal.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I have no particular feedback. No particular feedback.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Sorry about that. I don't know why it declined you.
Okay.
thanks for being here. So maybe we can, I saw a few things come in about that money and the Secretary of State and like a committee of sorts that was being formed. So maybe we can all take a look at that and talk about if we do want to put some pressure on whoever the decision makers are at the state, Secretary of State, maybe Sununu.
This is Jean again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Can I just add something there? It was a little disturbing to me to see the list of people there, because there were no local people. There was no town clerk and no city clerks who are the ones who are actually going to have to deal with this. And so it seems to me that it seems like they could add a few people to that and maybe add some local people as well. Maybe, I don't know, Neil, if that goes to the municipal association or what, but it just seems to me that would be the smartest thing to do, to make sure that we also have some local people who have to actually do the job.
I know in general, the municipal association has been pushing for that. For example, the governor meets fairly regularly with the mayors of the cities, but there's a lot of us out here who are not cities. So to get that representation, there has been a push to try to do that. So we can note that to the municipal association too, that this is a good place also.
Gene, do you know if the New Hampshire, is there like an association other than the municipal association of your office from other towns and cities?
Not from the supervisors that I'm aware of, but I'm pretty certain that there's a town clerks association.
Yeah, I know there's a town clerk one. Yeah.
Okay, right, but there's nothing, the only way the supervisors actually communicate with each other is if you run into someone at a meeting or something. And but we don't have any organization that I'm aware of. We communicate with the Secretary of State directly ourselves, and that would be it.
Is there any sort of an email blast or anything like that?
Not among just the supervisors. The only emails I get are from, well, we've got our 3 here in Hopkins and we communicate, but the only email blast we get is from the Secretary of State.
Okay, then yeah, I would encourage. I think it sounds like the municipal association's probably your best kind of point of leverage, and it sounds like they're already trying to carry that message. But yeah, if you think of anything else that we could do on behalf of the town and the supervisors, other than pushing the municipal association to keep doing that, let us know.
Okay, and I will send them contact. I'll probably contact Dave Scanlon about this, but just concerns that it's the town clerk really who has to do all this absentee voting stuff, especially, but also what happens on election day for both of these. That it would be really helpful to have some local input on the committee or commission,
Right.
whatever they're calling it. Thank you.
And the town clerks association is pretty strong too. So
Yeah, they are.
they have they're a good force that will be helpful too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks again, Jean. Anyone else for public forum? So we don't have anything else to discuss. So we are going to, unless, Ken, didn't you have something for Chief Yale for public?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll chat with Chief Yale, and then after Ken asks his public questions, we will be going into non-public with Chief Yale, and we will not be doing anything else after that, but adjourning.
EPL seems to have disappeared.
Oh,
Uh,
oh wait, he's under panelist now.
It's now a
Yeah,
panelist.
okay, there we go.
Been promoted.
Promoted. Oh, boy.
There you go. We can hear you.
I don't know if that's quite the right word. Chief, a couple of questions. In Rotary, there's the discussion about putting together a grant to buy a ventilator for our ambulance for like $14,000 or so. Wondering, is a ventilator something that's only necessary for COVID-19, or would it be usable after that?
It would definitely be usable after that. I spoke with, unfortunately, I can't remember his name today, but somebody from the Rotary at a Concord number.
It would have been Mike Byrne?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And we actually spoke at length about that, and it would be something that would be very usable after, and I would love to have anyways, but a $14,000 piece of equipment that we're, at this point, we've been getting by without it. But a couple of the nice things that you could do with the ventilator after, without a COVID patient, would be, it does BiPAP. CPAP is something that we do on a regular basis, and it takes a lot of oxygen. And we have about 20 minutes from the time we put a patient that has a breathing difficulty, mainly usually COPD, which a lot of the older, it's a nice name for people that are compromised, such as like emphysema. A lot of your old smokers or people that have worked in industry that weren't protected by respiratory protection in their younger days end up with this stuff, and we put them on CPAP, And the ventilator would do what they call BiPAP, which is actually, instead of just forcing oxygen into their lungs, it also helps them exhale, which that's usually one of the harder parts for somebody to get used to with the CPAP. They obviously need the oxygen in their lungs because their lungs are compromised and don't let them perfuse very well, and their sats of oxygen level in their blood go down. So the BiPAP is a way to use a lot less oxygen, and it's much better on the patient. But most of the way you get BiPAP is through a ventilator. Anytime we worked a cardiac arrest or had somebody intubated with, when we did an RSI or whatever, we could also use that ventilator. So there would be some definite other uses for it. And the paramedics have all, I won't say pressuring me, but they've all kind of showed me their wants for this. And there definitely is a need for it, but it would be, if we could get one with some financial help, that would be a tremendous piece of equipment that we could add to our arsenal of tools in the toolbox on the ambulance.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I will push it with Rotary. Also, in terms of personal protection equipment, how do we stand? Are we okay?
We're good to start with. I've been gathering since the beginning. It's still very difficult to get. Eye protection where we can is pretty readily available. N95 masks are starting to become available. I probably have a couple hundred of those in stock. As far as gowns, those have like surgical gowns have been one of the more difficult things to get. I think my current stock, I looked at them last week. I have somewhere around 40 or 50 of those, and I bought a bunch of Tyvek suits, which is something that we can use in place of those. And honestly, if it was me, I would take the Tyvek suit over the gown because it gives you better protection in a real serious case of COVID, not to mention the flu.
And what about our volume of calls as opposed to in a normal year?
The actual overall calls, it's kind of during the week, it seems as they've gone down. And the weekends have been really, really heavy call volume. Last weekend we had 16, and that's probably about at least twice what we would normally do. And this week we had 10 or 12, including a 2-alarm brush fire on Saturday evening.
That's the only questions I had for public session. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason for the calls being down during the week, the ambulance calls, is I think people are waiting till the very last minute just for the fact that they don't want to go to the hospital unless it's absolutely necessary.
Sure.
All right, thank you. So we will now go into non-public for all of our folks from the public who are on. So does someone want to make a motion to go into non-public under 91A32C, reputation?
So moved.
Second.
So I think that was Ken moving and Jeff seconding. I'm going to say that. All right, so roll call vote on this. Sabrina, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right. So goodbye, public, and we're going to stop recording here to go into non-public.